In the turbulent period of the early Middle Ages, specifically during the 8th and 9th centuries, Western Europe was undergoing a profound transformation. This era, emerging from the shadows of the fallen Roman Empire, saw the rise of one of history's most influential figures, Charlemagne. The landscape of Western Europe, particularly the Frankish territory, was a mosaic of former Roman provinces struggling to maintain their identity and order. The political landscape was notably fragmented, with various kingdoms and territories emerging from the remnants of the once mighty Roman Empire. This fragmentation created a complex web of alliances, rivalries, and shifting borders that would ultimately shape Charlemagne's policies and ambitions. The vacuum left by Rome's collapse had led to a decentralized power structure, with local leaders asserting their authority over smaller regions. The atmosphere of this period was rich with the sights, sounds, and smells of medieval life. Throughout the territory, castles and monasteries were continuously under construction, their stone walls rising against the medieval skyline. The air was filled with the rhythmic sounds of blacksmiths forging weapons and armor, while the clatter of horses' hooves on cobblestone streets echoed through settlements. These fortifications served both as centers of power and as symbols of the emerging feudal order. Within the religious buildings, the aromatic scent of incense wafted through the air, mixing with the exotic fragrances of rare spices brought from distant lands through emerging trade routes. These spices, highly valued and expensive, were symbols of wealth and power in medieval society. The fashion of the era reflected the rigid social hierarchy. Nobles adorned themselves in elaborate tunics, often decorated with intricate embroidery and secured with ornamental brooches. Royal garments were particularly spectacular, featuring crowns of gold and precious stones, and magnificent royal cloaks that demonstrated the wearer's status and authority. The architecture of the period was marked by the emergence of the Romanesque style, characterized by thick stone walls, rounded arches, and robust towers. These architectural elements were not merely aesthetic choices, but practical necessities in an age where defense was paramount. Stone fortifications dotted the landscape, serving as centers of both military and administrative power. Technological advancement, though gradual, was significant during this period. The introduction of heavy plows revolutionized agriculture, allowing for more efficient cultivation of the dense European soils. Water mills began to harness the power of rivers and streams, providing essential energy for grinding grain and other industrial processes. Metallurgy techniques continued to evolve, enabling the production of better tools and weapons, which were crucial for both peaceful development and military campaigns. This was the world in which Charlemagne would rise to power, a world of transition, where the old Roman order had faded, but new systems and structures were still taking shape. It was a time of great challenges, but also of immense opportunities for those with the vision and capability to seize them. At the center of this remarkable period stood Charlemagne, born in 742 as the eldest son of Pepin the Short. His very name, Charlemagne, Charles the Great, would become synonymous with medieval kingship and imperial power. Standing at an impressive height of approximately 6 feet, 1.80 meters, unusually tall for his time, Charlemagne cut an imposing figure that commanded respect wherever he went. Contemporary accounts describe him as broad-shouldered with a thick neck, creating an aura of physical dominance that complemented his political authority. Charlemagne's personality was as remarkable as his physical presence. He possessed a natural charisma that drew people to him and inspired loyalty among his followers. His political acumen was exceptional, demonstrating an innate ability to balance various competing interests while maintaining and expanding his power. He was known for his intellectual curiosity, his love of learning, and his ability to speak multiple languages, though historical records suggest he struggled with writing. Among the crucial figures who shaped Charlemagne's reign was Alcuin of York, a Saxon scholar who became the emperor's most trusted intellectual advisor. Alcuin was the architect of the Carolingian Renaissance, establishing a comprehensive educational program that would revive learning throughout the empire. His influence on Charlemagne was profound, helping to transform the warrior king into a patron of arts and learning. Under Alcuin's guidance, the palace school at Aachen became a beacon of intellectual achievement, attracting scholars from across Europe. Pope Leo III played a pivotal role in Charlemagne's rise to imperial power. Their relationship was one of mutual benefit and complex political maneuvering. When Leo faced opposition in Rome, fleeing to Charlemagne for protection, it set the stage for one of history's most significant moments. Charlemagne's coronation as Emperor of the Romans on Christmas Day, 800 CE. This alliance between the papacy and the Frankish throne would reshape the political landscape of medieval Europe. Standing in opposition to Charlemagne's expansionist policies was Widukind, the formidable Saxon leader who became the emperor's most persistent antagonist. For nearly 30 years, Widukind led Saxon resistance against Frankish domination, embodying the fierce independence of the Germanic tribes. His eventual submission and baptism in 785 marked a crucial turning point in Charlemagne's efforts to unite and Christianize Western Europe. The transformation of Charlemagne from King of the Franks to Emperor of the West represents one of history's most remarkable political journeys. Beginning his reign as one among several European kings, he systematically expanded his authority through a combination of military conquest, diplomatic alliances, and cultural initiatives. This transformation was not merely one of titles and territories. It represented a fundamental shift in how political power was conceived in post-Roman Europe. Through his relationships with these key figures, the scholar Alcuin, the Pope Leo III, and even his adversary Widukind, Charlemagne demonstrated his ability to harness different forms of power: intellectual, religious, and military. His reign marked the emergence of a new political order that would influence European governance for centuries to come. The relationships he forged and the conflicts he navigated tell the story not just of one man's rise to power, but of the reshaping of an entire continent's political and cultural landscape. The reign of Charlemagne was defined by two fundamental themes: unification and cultural renaissance. These intertwined objectives shaped the narrative of his empire and generated multiple layers of conflict throughout his territories. The military aspect of unification manifested through numerous expansion campaigns that lasted for decades. Charlemagne's armies pushed the boundaries of Frankish control into Saxon territories, Lombardy, Bavaria, and beyond. However, these conquests faced fierce resistance from local populations. The Saxon Wars, lasting from 772 to 804, exemplify this struggle, with Widukind leading a determined resistance against Frankish domination. The conquered peoples often revolted against their new rulers, requiring constant military presence and strategic governance to maintain control. The cultural conflict centered on the tension between Christianity and pagan traditions. Charlemagne viewed the spread of Christianity as essential to his empire's unity and legitimacy. This led to forced conversions, particularly among the Saxons, where refusing baptism could result in death. Traditional Germanic religious practices were systematically suppressed, while Christian monasteries and churches were established throughout the conquered territories. This religious transformation wasn't merely spiritual. It represented a fundamental shift in social organization and daily life for many communities. Political tensions arose from Charlemagne's efforts to centralize power within his vast empire. The traditional autonomy enjoyed by local rulers and tribal leaders clashed with his vision of a unified administration. To address this, Charlemagne implemented a sophisticated system of counts and missi dominici, royal envoys, to extend his authority throughout the realm. However, local nobles and regional leaders often resisted this centralization, preferring to maintain their traditional independence and power structures. Education and knowledge preservation emerged as crucial elements of Charlemagne's reign. The Carolingian Renaissance represented a conscious effort to revive classical learning and standardize education throughout the empire. Monasteries became centers of learning and manuscript production, while the palace school at Aachen attracted scholars from across Europe. This educational revival wasn't merely academic. It served political purposes by creating a standardized administrative class capable of governing a vast empire. The relationship between church and state during Charlemagne's reign set precedents that would influence European politics for centuries. His coronation as emperor by Pope Leo III in 800 CE established a complex partnership between secular and religious authority. The church provided legitimacy to Charlemagne's rule, while he offered protection and support for religious institutions. This arrangement created a model of Christian kingship that would define medieval European monarchy. Administrative reforms under Charlemagne were comprehensive and innovative. He standardized currency, weights, and measures throughout his territories. The development of the Carolingian minuscule script improved administrative efficiency and communication. His capitularies, royal ordinances, addressed everything from legal matters to agricultural practices, creating a framework for governance that would influence medieval administration long after his death. These intersecting themes and conflicts transformed Western Europe, creating a new political and cultural landscape that would define the medieval period. Charlemagne's approach to these challenges demonstrated both pragmatism and vision, as he worked to build an empire that was not just politically unified but culturally and administratively coherent. His solutions to these conflicts, though not always successful, established patterns of governance and cultural integration that would influence European development for centuries to come. Daily life in Charlemagne's empire reflected a society in transition, where the emerging feudal system was reshaping social relationships and administrative structures. This period witnessed the formation of a complex social hierarchy that would define medieval European society for centuries to come. The emerging feudal system represented a revolutionary approach to territorial administration. Counts and margraves, appointed by Charlemagne, governed specific territories as his representatives. These nobles managed local affairs, collected taxes, administered justice, and maintained military forces. The counts became the backbone of regional administration, while margraves specifically governed border regions, combining administrative duties with crucial defensive responsibilities. To ensure loyalty and maintain control over these regional administrators, Charlemagne instituted the innovative system of missi dominici. These royal envoys, typically traveling in pairs consisting of one ecclesiastical and one secular official, conducted regular inspections throughout the empire. They reviewed local administration, heard appeals, and ensured the proper implementation of royal capitularies. This system created a vital link between central authority and local governance, helping to maintain imperial standards across vast territories. The Carolingian Renaissance transformed educational and cultural practices throughout the empire. Monastic schools emerged as centers of learning, where students studied the liberal arts, including grammar, rhetoric, and logic. These institutions preserved and transmitted both classical knowledge and Christian doctrine, creating a standardized educational framework that would influence European intellectual life for generations. Within monastery scriptoria, monks meticulously copied manuscripts, preserving ancient texts and creating new ones. This work was not merely mechanical reproduction. It involved careful editing, commentary, and artistic illustration. The development of Carolingian minuscule script represented a significant advancement in written communication. This clear, standardized handwriting style improved legibility and speed of reproduction, facilitating administrative efficiency and cultural transmission throughout the empire. The social fabric of the empire encompassed diverse perspectives and experiences. The Frankish nobility underwent significant adaptation as they integrated into the new imperial system. Traditional tribal leadership structures evolved into a more formalized feudal hierarchy, with nobles assuming new administrative responsibilities and cultural practices. This transformation required them to balance traditional authority with new imperial obligations. Conquered peoples experienced varying degrees of cultural assimilation. Some regions rapidly adopted Frankish customs, language, and religious practices, while others maintained stronger ties to their traditional ways of life. This process of cultural integration was neither uniform nor entirely peaceful, often resulting in a unique fusion of Frankish and local traditions. The clergy played a crucial role in preserving and transmitting knowledge. Monasteries functioned as centers of intellectual activity, where monks and scholars maintained libraries, copied texts, and engaged in theological and philosophical discourse. They served as guardians of both classical learning and Christian doctrine, ensuring the continuity of intellectual traditions through the medieval period. The daily rhythm of life varied significantly across social classes and regions. Peasants continued their agricultural labor, adapting to new farming techniques and administrative requirements. Urban centers, though still modest by later medieval standards, saw increased commercial activity and craft specialization. The royal court at Aachen became a model of imperial administration and cultural sophistication, attracting scholars, artists, and diplomats from across Europe and beyond. Trade and commerce experienced both regulation and encouragement under Charlemagne's rule. Markets were standardized, weights and measures unified, and currency reformed. These changes facilitated economic exchange while strengthening imperial control over commercial activities. Local markets and regional trade routes connected different parts of the empire, contributing to both economic development and cultural exchange. Through these various aspects of daily life and social structure, Charlemagne's empire achieved a remarkable balance between centralized authority and local administration, between cultural preservation and innovation, and between traditional practices and new imperial standards. This complex social and administrative framework would influence European society long after the Carolingian period, establishing patterns that would characterize medieval life for centuries to come. The reign of Charlemagne was marked by several pivotal events that fundamentally shaped medieval Europe. Each of these moments represented crucial turning points that would influence the course of European history for centuries to come. The coronation of Charlemagne as King of the Franks in 768 marked the beginning of his remarkable journey to power. Following the death of his father, Pepin the Short, the Frankish kingdom was divided between Charlemagne and his younger brother Carloman. This division created immediate tensions, as both brothers struggled to maintain unity within their respective territories. The sudden and mysterious death of Carloman in 771 eliminated this potential source of civil war, though rumors and suspicions about the circumstances of his death persisted. Charlemagne swiftly moved to incorporate his brother's territories, effectively reunifying the Frankish kingdom under his sole rule, while Carloman's widow and children fled to the Lombard court for protection. The conquest of the Lombard kingdom in 774 demonstrated Charlemagne's diplomatic and military prowess. The complex series of events began with his marriage to Desiderata, daughter of the Lombard king Desiderius, a union arranged to secure peace between the two kingdoms. However, Charlemagne's sudden repudiation of Desiderata, after just 1 year, created a diplomatic crisis. When Pope Adrian I appealed to Charlemagne for protection against Lombard aggression, the Frankish king seized the opportunity. His campaign against the Lombards was swift and decisive, resulting in the capture of Pavia, the Lombard capital, and Charlemagne's assumption of the title King of the Lombards. This conquest significantly expanded Frankish control into Italy and strengthened the alliance between the Frankish throne and the papacy. The Saxon Wars represented the longest and most challenging of Charlemagne's military campaigns. This 3-decade conflict aimed to both expand Frankish territory and spread Christianity among the pagan Saxons. The Battle of Verdun in 782 became infamous for its brutality, where, according to historical accounts, Charlemagne ordered the execution of 4,500 Saxon prisoners. This event, known as the Massacre of Verdun, exemplified the harsh methods employed to suppress Saxon resistance. The forced conversion of the Saxons to Christianity was implemented through strict laws that made refusing baptism a capital offense. The eventual submission of the Saxon leader Widukind and his baptism in 785 marked a crucial turning point, though resistance continued for nearly 2 decades afterward. The imperial coronation of Charlemagne on Christmas Day, 800, in St. Peter's Basilica in Rome, stands as one of the most significant moments in medieval history. The ceremony, performed by Pope Leo III, established Charlemagne as the first emperor of the Romans since the fall of the Western Roman Empire more than 3 centuries earlier. This event carried profound political and symbolic significance. It legitimized Charlemagne's rule over vast territories and established a new concept of Christian imperial authority in Western Europe. The coronation also complicated relations with the Byzantine Empire, which considered itself the true heir to Roman authority. The establishment of what would later be known as the Holy Roman Empire represented a revolutionary political development. This new empire combined elements of Roman imperial tradition with Christian kingship and Frankish military power. Charlemagne's imperial title provided a theoretical framework for the unity of Western Christendom under a single ruler, though this unity would prove difficult to maintain after his death. Each of these events contributed to the transformation of Western Europe from a collection of post-Roman kingdoms into a more unified political and cultural entity. The coronation as King of the Franks established the foundation for his power. The conquest of the Lombards secured his position in Italy and strengthened papal alliance. The Saxon Wars expanded Christian influence into Germanic territories. Finally, the imperial coronation created a new political framework that would influence European politics for a millennium. These turning points not only shaped Charlemagne's reign, but also established patterns of political, religious, and cultural development that would characterize medieval Europe. The synthesis of Roman, Christian, and Germanic elements that emerged during this period created a distinctive European civilization that would evolve through the Middle Ages and beyond. The Carolingian Renaissance represents one of the most significant cultural revivals in European history, marking a deliberate effort to restore learning and establish new intellectual standards across Western Europe. This period of cultural flowering transformed education, religious practice, and artistic expression, leaving an enduring legacy that would influence European civilization for centuries to come. The educational reforms initiated during the Carolingian Renaissance were comprehensive and far-reaching. Charlemagne, guided by the Anglo-Saxon scholar Alcuin of York, established the Palace School at Aachen as a model of educational excellence. This institution attracted scholars from across Europe and became the intellectual center of the empire. The curriculum was based on the 7 liberal arts: the trivium, grammar, rhetoric, and logic, and the quadrivium, arithmetic, geometry, astronomy, and music. These subjects formed the foundation of medieval education and continued to influence European academic traditions well into the modern era. The standardization of writing during this period produced one of the most lasting achievements of the Carolingian Renaissance, the Carolingian minuscule script. This clear, uniform handwriting style revolutionized written communication throughout Europe. Its development made texts more legible and easier to reproduce, facilitating the preservation and transmission of knowledge. Many modern lowercase letters derive directly from this script, demonstrating its enduring influence on Western writing systems. The preservation of classical texts became a primary focus of Carolingian intellectual efforts. Monasteries across the empire engaged in systematic copying of ancient manuscripts, saving numerous classical works that might otherwise have been lost. Scribes not only copied texts but also corrected and standardized them, creating authoritative versions of important works. This preservation effort encompassed both religious texts and secular classical literature, helping to maintain continuity with the classical past while serving the needs of contemporary scholarship. Religious reform under Charlemagne was equally comprehensive. The standardization of liturgical practices throughout the empire created a more unified Christian church. Charlemagne supported the adoption of Roman liturgical practices, replacing various local traditions. This standardization extended to church music, with the development of Gregorian chant as the authorized form of liturgical music. The emperor also encouraged the construction of churches and monasteries, which served as centers of both religious practice and learning. The expansion of Christianity under Charlemagne combined missionary work with political control. The conversion of conquered peoples, particularly the Saxons, was often achieved through a combination of force and persuasion. Monasteries were established in newly Christian territories, serving as centers for both religious instruction and cultural assimilation. The church hierarchy was integrated into the imperial administrative system, with bishops and abbots playing crucial roles in both religious and secular governance. Carolingian art and architecture represented a conscious revival of Roman imperial styles combined with innovative new elements. The Chapel Palatine in Aachen, Charlemagne's court chapel, exemplifies this synthesis. Its octagonal design, inspired by San Vitale in Ravenna, incorporated classical columns and arches while introducing new architectural solutions. The chapel served as a model for religious architecture throughout the empire and influenced church design for generations. The production of illuminated manuscripts reached new heights during this period. Carolingian scriptoria developed distinctive styles of illustration that combined classical influences with medieval Christian imagery. The Utrecht Psalter, with its vibrant, energetic illustrations, and the Godescalc Evangelistary, created for Charlemagne himself, demonstrate the sophisticated artistic achievements of this era. These manuscripts combined beautiful calligraphy with elaborate decorative elements and complex narrative illustrations. The architectural program extended beyond religious buildings to include palaces, fortifications, and civil structures. The palace complex at Aachen, with its grand hall, thermal baths, and chapel, demonstrated the revival of Roman architectural techniques and the creation of new forms appropriate to medieval governance. The use of stone construction increased, and standardized building techniques spread throughout the empire. The cultural and intellectual achievements of Charlemagne's reign established patterns that would influence European civilization for centuries. The emphasis on education, the preservation of classical knowledge, the standardization of religious practice, and the development of distinctive artistic styles created a cultural framework that would define medieval European civilization. The synthesis of classical, Christian, and Germanic elements achieved during this period produced a uniquely European cultural tradition that continues to influence Western civilization. This cultural renaissance was not merely an artistic or intellectual movement. It served practical political purposes by providing the educational and administrative tools necessary for governing a vast empire. The standardization of writing, education, and religious practice helped create a more unified and administratively efficient state. The cultural achievements of the Carolingian period thus represented both a revival of classical learning and the creation of new forms appropriate to medieval society. The Carolingian Empire under Charlemagne maintained complex diplomatic, commercial, and cultural relationships with neighboring civilizations, creating a network of international connections that enriched and shaped medieval European society. These external interactions played a crucial role in the development of Carolingian culture and administration. Diplomatic relations with the Byzantine Empire were particularly intricate and often tense. The relationship between Charlemagne and the Byzantine rulers oscillated between cooperation and rivalry. His imperial coronation in 800 CE created significant diplomatic tensions, as the Byzantines viewed themselves as the sole legitimate heirs to the Roman Empire. Despite these tensions, Charlemagne sought recognition from Constantinople, eventually achieving a diplomatic compromise with Emperor Michael I in 812 CE, who acknowledged him as emperor, though carefully avoiding the title Emperor of the Romans. These diplomatic negotiations resulted in cultural exchange, with Byzantine artistic styles and administrative practices influencing Carolingian developments. The relationship with the Abbasid Caliphate, particularly during the reign of Harun al-Rashid, represents one of the most fascinating diplomatic achievements of Charlemagne's reign. Despite the religious differences and vast geographical distance between their empires, Charlemagne and Harun al-Rashid exchanged several diplomatic missions and gifts. The most famous of these exchanges included the gift of an elephant named Abul Abbas, which Harun sent to Charlemagne in 802 CE. This diplomatic relationship facilitated cultural and technological exchange between the Islamic world and Western Europe. Commercial networks played a vital role in connecting the Carolingian Empire with distant lands. Trade routes linking Europe with the Orient brought luxury goods such as spices, silk, and precious stones to Carolingian markets. The empire's control over key alpine passes and major rivers enabled it to regulate and profit from trans-European trade. Charlemagne implemented policies to standardize weights, measures, and coinage, facilitating commercial exchange throughout his territories and with foreign merchants. The supervision of terrestrial trade routes was crucial for both economic and strategic reasons. The empire maintained and protected key trading paths, including the old Roman roads and important river crossings. This control not only facilitated commerce, but also allowed for the movement of diplomatic missions and the transmission of cultural influences. Trading posts and markets were established at strategic points, creating centers for both commercial and cultural exchange. Byzantine artistic influence was particularly evident in Carolingian architecture and decorative arts. The palace chapel at Aachen, with its octagonal design and elaborate mosaics, clearly drew inspiration from Byzantine models, particularly the Church of San Vitale in Ravenna. Byzantine artistic techniques and motifs were adapted and transformed within the Carolingian context, creating a distinctive artistic synthesis. The transmission of Arab knowledge significantly impacted Carolingian intellectual life. Arabic translations of classical Greek texts, along with original Arab contributions in mathematics, astronomy, and medicine, began to filter into European scholarly circles. Although the full impact of Arabic learning would not be felt until the later medieval period, the foundations for this intellectual exchange were laid during the Carolingian era. Germanic traditions remained a strong influence throughout Charlemagne's reign, despite his efforts to promote Roman and Christian customs. Traditional Germanic legal concepts, military organizations, and social structures were integrated into the imperial system. The warrior ethos of Germanic society influenced the development of what would later become medieval chivalry. The fusion of Germanic, Roman, and Christian elements created a distinctive Carolingian cultural synthesis. The interaction between these various cultural traditions produced new forms of artistic and intellectual expression. Carolingian manuscript illumination, for instance, combined Germanic decorative patterns with Byzantine-influenced figural art and Roman lettering styles. This cultural synthesis extended to multiple areas, including architecture, metalwork, and ivory carving. Language and literature also reflected these diverse influences. While Latin was promoted as the language of administration and learning, vernacular traditions were not entirely suppressed. The recording of Germanic heroic poetry, and the development of early Romance languages demonstrated the complex linguistic situation within the empire. The empire's role as a cultural mediator between different civilizations had lasting consequences for European development. By maintaining connections with both the Byzantine East and the Islamic world, while preserving and adapting Germanic traditions, the Carolingian Empire created a distinctive European cultural synthesis that would influence subsequent medieval civilization. These international connections and cultural exchanges contributed significantly to the character of Carolingian civilization. The ability to absorb and adapt influences from various sources while maintaining its own distinctive character was one of the defining features of Charlemagne's empire. This pattern of cultural synthesis and adaptation would continue to characterize European civilization long after the Carolingian period, establishing a model for cultural exchange and integration that remains relevant to understanding European cultural development. The legacy of Charlemagne and the Carolingian Empire continues to resonate through European history and modern society, establishing patterns and principles that have influenced political, cultural, and educational development for over a millennium. The establishment of feudalism under Charlemagne created a social and political framework that would define medieval Europe. The systematic organization of society into interdependent layers of obligation and service provided a workable solution for governing vast territories in an age of limited communication and transportation. This system, though not fully developed during Charlemagne's reign, laid the groundwork for medieval social organization. Administrative standardization represented a remarkable achievement that brought consistency to governance across diverse territories. The implementation of unified systems for currency and weights, legal procedures, administrative documentation, educational standards created a model of centralized administration that influenced subsequent European governments. The educational reforms initiated during the Carolingian Renaissance had immediate and far-reaching effects. The establishment of monastery and cathedral schools created an educational infrastructure that would evolve into medieval universities. The standardization of Latin writing and textual preservation techniques ensured the transmission of classical knowledge to future generations. The Holy Roman Empire, which emerged from the Carolingian model, continued to influence European politics until its dissolution in 1806. The concept of universal Christian monarchy, combined with decentralized territorial administration, provided a framework for medieval political organization. The relationship between secular and religious authority established during Charlemagne's reign continued to shape European political discourse throughout the medieval period. The development of Romance languages received crucial impetus during the Carolingian period. The standardization of Latin administration, combined with the acceptance of vernacular traditions, contributed to the evolution of distinct regional languages. The Strasbourg Oaths of 842, sworn in both early French and German, provide the earliest written evidence of this linguistic differentiation. Charlemagne's empire left an enduring legacy that echoes to this day. Imagine a vast territory where central authority and local administration worked in harmony, creating a model that would influence all of medieval Europe. In this empire, counts and margraves administered territories, while church and state walked hand in hand. Political relationships were based on personal loyalty, establishing a delicate balance between central power and local autonomy. When we look at the European Union today, we see reflections of this ancient empire. The pursuit of cultural unity while respecting diversity, the standardization of administration across national borders, common educational standards, and the preservation of cultural heritage. All these modern principles trace their roots back to the Carolingian era. The Carolingian emphasis on education and cultural preservation teaches us timeless lessons. Just as they understood centuries ago, we recognize today that cultural and intellectual growth requires systematic organization, investment in infrastructure, standardization of practices, and careful preservation of our heritage. Perhaps most remarkably, the Carolingian Empire showed us how to manage cultural diversity within a unified framework. Their ability to integrate different traditions, maintain local customs while establishing common standards, and foster cultural exchange offers invaluable insights for today's multinational organizations and political unions. The spirit of Charlemagne lives on in contemporary European identity and institutions. Each year, the city of Aachen awards the Charlemagne Prize, celebrating contributions to European unity. The key lessons remain as relevant as ever. The importance of balancing unity with diversity, the crucial role of education, the value of preserving culture, and the art of maintaining distinct identities within a greater whole. As we face modern challenges of integration and global cultural exchange, the Carolingian experience continues to light our way forward, showing us that unity and diversity need not be opposing forces, but can instead work together to create something truly remarkable. The legacy of Charlemagne and his empire remains remarkably relevant to contemporary discussions of European identity, cultural preservation, and political integration. Understanding this legacy helps illuminate both the historical roots of modern European institutions and potential approaches to current challenges of unity and diversity in an interconnected world.